T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And I'll bring myself on stage first. I hope you guys are all having a great weekend. Mine's been extremely busy. Today, I literally just got home about 10 minutes ago. I had a local show, show me show locally, 10 minutes. It's a very small show, but I ended up moving a few animals and did pretty well overall. So I was pretty happy for that. I cut a clown pipe clutch, which is really exciting. Hit at least 3. One of them I couldn't see the head, so I have 3 clown pieds, 3 pied head clowns, then 1 kind of bonus guy we'll see whenever I see the head. And then my friend actually invited me to go to church, so I went to church, and that was a little bit longer than I had thought I had planned for, but it's okay. I left a few minutes early to get home and do this. It was interestingly enough an African-based church, so that was different experience, but it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. It was like a Christmas concert thing, so it was a lot of fun. But I'll talk to you guys here. Bring you up on the screen. So we got Mike. Mike's always first. Thanks for tapping in. We got James from J.S. Exotics. Thanks for tapping in. We got Marcus from Sweden. Thanks for tapping in, Marcus. I don't know what time it is over there, but I appreciate you tapping in. We got Sammy. Hey, thanks for tapping in. Seeing John from Angelic Serpents. I see that you're new here, so thanks for tapping in. Oh, no sound. Okay, I'll hear now. Yeah, I think there was a little bit in the beginning. H&H Husbury, thanks for tapping in, guys. We hung out a little bit last week at the KC All-American Plant Reptile Expo. That was a lot of fun, too. I was pretty tired from that trip. This was a weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday show, so I was a little bit tired after that one. 4 a.m. Wow. Thanks for tapping. That's dedication right there. But yeah, so without further ado, let's see how you guys in the chat, and I'll bring up US ARC real quick, and then we'll bring Miss Heidi on. So again, you guys know the drill, but if you're new here, the link is in the description below to go to US ARC, support US ARC Florida, of course. But just US ARC in general, become a member if you haven't already. Super, super important. There are voices essentially when combating legislation on being able to keep these animals. So I think it's super important that we go and do that, because they're fighting for us to keep these wonderful animals that make us happy day in, day out, are a really big part of our lives. So it's the least we can do in my eyes. So definitely go and support them. All right, and with that, I'll bring Miss Heidi on. I'm doing something new. I'm kind of including the thumbnail on the back. I've seen some other people on the Trap Talk Network do that this week, and I kind of like it, so I'm gonna steal that idea and try it. So yeah, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's been pretty crazy busy day, but a good day overall. So
Yeah, I feel it's just been crazy busy everywhere now with like the holidays coming up, and there's actually been a lot of expos recently. So it's just getting through all that, and then I'm actually from Wisconsin, so the weather has been all over the place the last 2 weeks.
yes, it has for here too. It was pretty cold last week, and then it got rainy yesterday, pretty warm today and tomorrow, like in the 50s, and it'll get
Mhm.
cooler. So there's a little bit of break in shipping for a few days. Then yeah, close it up for the holidays. So
Yeah, it's been like freezing rain the last few nights, but then by morning it's like 40 degrees, so everything's super foggy and like I don't know, it's like really nice. And then it snowed again this afternoon, but now it's all melted already. So yeah, we had snow for Thanksgiving, but last year it was like 60 degrees for Christmas, so we like cooked out instead of anything else. So we'll see what happens next week.
okay, that's awesome. Yeah, it snowed here for Thanksgiving as well, and we've had it was a year where it was around 60 for Christmas too. I usually go to Florida. I'll be going to Florida this year for Christmas, so I'll leave, and we've kind of done that family tradition for 15 years now on my mom's side. We all kind of go down there for the week, so
No,
pretty excited. I'm hoping it'll be warm, but I always hope it's like mid 70s would be really nice.
yeah.
So looking forward to that. So yeah, it's a busy time of year, and expos. I'll be taking a little bit of a break till maybe end of January or February from them because I've done a lot the past couple weeks, month. So
Yeah, we had them like almost back to back. It was like every other weekend for 2 months.
Mm.
And then I didn't have one this month because I had other things going on. But then I do one, I think the first weekend in January, we'll do one. And then I'll update everything on Morph Market because pretty much starting this past week until after the holidays, I don't even bother with shipping because I risk them lost or
Yep.
just delayed for days on end. So I just don't bother because it's not,
Worth it.
Big a deal.
Yep. Totally. Yeah, I'm just trying to squeeze these last. My morph market has been up a lot the past ever since I would say Thanksgiving has been a real big spike. So I'm trying to like push everything out or just do like a payment plan for a month or something till shipping opens up. I've been doing too. So, but it's been increasing. I don't know if because of the holidays or what, but I've liked it. So like, yeah. It's good. So yeah. So I'll ask the general question, of course, and I kind of take things going from there. But what got you into reptiles and leopard geckos specifically, and what kind of got you journey wise to what you're doing now?
So kind of like probably most people had reptiles growing up. I kind of started off being obsessed with dinosaurs and watching like Discovery Channel. You would see like Komodo Island and all, things like that. So I started out with like anoles and then I ended up with bearded dragons. And so over the years until my teenage years, I had various reptiles, not always giving them the best care because there wasn't much for info until my mother got with my stepfather, who actually was friends with someone who owned a exotic store in Milwaukee, and they actually had specialists that worked with the reptiles and like with the aquatics and things. So that's where I learned better care for reptiles, and that's where I started seeing leopard geckos that had morphs. It was like late 90s, early 2000s, maybe when you could see like an albino or things like that. But I didn't really start getting anything till later in the 2000s. My sister had some geckos, and then I started going to expos and I was looking, and there was a breeder. He doesn't breed now, but he was working with like Ron Tremper, so he had like
Mm.
a whole book full of pictures and geckos, and that's how you would kind of order.
Mm.
So I'm like looking at these geckos, and then he gave me the website, and so I sent an email and I ordered a few geckos, and so that's kind of how it started. Because I knew I didn't want to get geckos from a pet store, because I just, after being at that exotic store, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to go. It just didn't look right. So I tried to do it better by, I mean, even though I had 40-gallon tanks, and I did have heating from the top, but I didn't know what it was called. My dad had got it for me, but it was giving off the heat without the lighting. So it was like the ceramic heat emitters.
CHE, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I started that way, but then after a while, I'm like, I want to really like get into breeding these, because I was listening to like Gecko Nation Radio, and I was watching, David's Fine Geckos on YouTube, and Sassoback and things like that. So I'm like, I really want to do that. I'm like, I absolutely love these reptiles and like working with genetics and things. So I just kind of took it further with the little collection that I had, and then started buying from, bigger breeders that, you do your research. Or some people do and some people don't.
As I've learned, yes.
Yeah, started small. I think my first season I had 8 geckos, so I only paired a few of them, and then slowly got bigger. And this is, I believe, going on to my 10th season.
Oh wow!
2016 was my first season, so 9 or 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, decent amount of time. Yeah, for the leopard geckos,
somewhere in there. But yeah, and so the leopard geckos are all I've bred. I have subspecies now that I've been working with the last year or two, but I never bred any of the other reptiles that I have. We had parakeets at some point that had eggs, but nothing ever came out of that, but they weren't mine. They were like my aunts, and they just would always have eggs, and then, they would discard them, but we never bred any of the other reptiles that I had. This was just something I wanted to do as an adult with my time, because I'm like, I have the time and money and space, so I'm like, I want to do, this is the hobby that I wanted. I'm not one for like shopping or collecting shoes and bags and shit, so I'm like,
yeah,
it's
a lot more fun. I've never been that type either. I've never been a girly girl. I've always been, I grew up on a farm with animals. I was helping my dad put hay up in the barn or whatever, stalls, so I was never much of a girly girl into clothes.
I was very much a tomboy. I would hang out with my boy cousins. You go in the creek and you collect the crayfish and the frogs and turtles.
Oh yeah.
Never did the dolls really.
That was me too. I have a very fond memory of going out with my dad in the woods and finding box turtles at the time, before they were like quote unquote, I want to say legal, but like not being able to keep them. It was before that, but we'd always go there and collect tree frogs. Or my grandparents lived on a lake, so I spent almost every summer out there fishing on the docks and stuff and finding crayfish. So yeah.
I love to explore and find animals. I love doing all that.
I love seeing them in their natural. I mean, I like zoos and stuff, but I really am more fascinated with seeing them in their more naturalistic, or like in the wild, and trying to preserve it and not mess with them too much.
It's cool. So like, I grew up in Milwaukee, so in the city, so we didn't see much unless we went to like my aunt's. She lived out in like Fox Lake, so there was like farmland and creeks and things. So now where we live we have like 5 acres, and we don't have the lake. We have lake access, but it's not on our property. But if we go down to the edge of our property across the little street, there's the lake. So we see turtles there all the time. Giant bullfrogs taunt us and things like that. So, all the different little kinds of snakes and things. And we have like owls in our yard. We have foxes in our yard. So it's like cool. A lot of like really cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's not cool for my chickens. They're terrified of the foxes, but
yeah. On the farm we had coyotes, so that was all. They tried to get the baby calves and stuff. So that was we got bigger dogs to kind of chase them off. But yeah, that was a thing growing up. And I always thought they were cool, but I liked the baby cows more. So
yeah, it's one of those things. We had like the fox. We have a den in the way bottom of our property, and in the spring she would teach her babies how to hunt are like
Mm.
stalk our chickens, and it's kind of like they're so cute, but I also don't want my chickens to die.
Yeah.
We would
It's
kind of like shoo them off. Like they run away from you, but
yeah.
I don't want to like shoot at them or like do anything to hurt them. But it's like,
Mm.
like I don't want my
Oh,
chickens to die.
yeah, it's the tough animal lover in us. We're like, oh, it's so cool seeing them in their natural habitat. But it's like, also, I really care for my chickens. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, not free food.
Like, sorry. Sorry. But yeah, they're really pretty. So, okay. And how big is your collection now? Like, how many are you producing a year?
I try to keep it definitely manageable for me. I think the last 3 or 4 years it's been about the same. I don't think I produce more than 150 babies a year.
Okay.
And that's like probably max, and that's including the subspecies because I work with Fuscus and Hardwicke as well.
Mm.
And then let me see, I'm trying to count. I usually keep around 80 adult females.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes there's a few extra, sometimes less. I don't breed them all every year. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
selective. So if I find that 2 years in a row go by and I don't breed a female, I try to home her because I don't want her just hanging out here.
Yeah.
If she could go either be used to someone else or just be a spoiled pet.
Mm-hmm.
And males, I usually just keep around 20. Sometimes I try to keep brothers or like a father and son in case like if I want a specific outcome or like lineage, if one decides they're not interested in breeding,
Mm-hmm.
then I can, throw the backup in.
Mm.
But yeah, I try to not have too many. Like I don't like when every single rack is completely full, which is usually at the end of summer when that happens, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's never where I run out of space, and that's how I like it. So I made sure I have enough room that I don't do that.
Yeah. That's
And then
kind of
also
where.
me
Oh, go
from
ahead.
like buying things that I probably don't need or holding back more than I need. Because I used to be really bad. I would hoard everything.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, one female would give me 10 babies and I'd probably want to keep like 8 of them. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
really not necessary, but I just would. Or I'd like to at least let them grow up longer than most people
Uh-huh.
just to see how they're going to turn out, how long they hold their color or pattern and their temperaments and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I can tell a little bit more early on. I know that that's going to fade, or I know that, I do not need all these extra males. So I only need to watch these 2 instead of all 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been easier over the years, but I still run into that occasionally where it's like, oh, I need to keep both of you for a while. Like, I had a Black Knight cross project that I did this year, and I'm holding back everything from that just so I can see how they all develop and then
Right.
work with that again next year with those offspring back to parents and see what
Mm-hmm.
comes of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's taking up a little bit of space this year, but it's part of, creating things and
Mm-hmm.
seeing where it leads rather than, oh, cool, I made this and then get rid of it.
Yeah, I would say that's more of me. I'm just like so I'll say hyper focused, but concerned about making too much and holding on to too much, like not being able to sell them. But I could probably be more on, this year I plan on holding a little bit more stuff back. I've kind of been mostly selling stuff or seeing if I can even sell stuff before I start producing too many. And I've been able to, sell out last year, and this year I'm getting pretty close before I start breeding. I kind of bred a little bit later last year too. When do yours start ovulating typically?
Usually, sometimes the first of the year, I have my first couple of pairings. I probably have some that are ovulating now, but I make it a habit to not even check till the first.
Yeah.
So I can breed in waves. So I'll have like a handful that will breed in January, a few that will breed in February, and so on. And I usually stop breeding in May. So this way, everything is kind of done by like October.
Okay.
It's like usually when the last babies are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then everybody can go a few months and get back to normal. I can unplug all the incubators. I worked with African fat tails for a few years, and their ovulation was kind of opposite. So
Interesting.
So they were kind of laying. So I would have the incubators on just constantly year
Yeah.
round. So but now I just have the leopard geckos, so I can kind of take a break from that and not have to worry about any like hatchlings. Everything is at least a few months old by now. And then
Yeah.
I also have different ages. So when I go to expos, I have everything from 3 months to like sometimes a year, just depends. And I usually have enough where, because my first few years I didn't breed much, so I would sell out every year. Which was kind of cool, but then it's like, oh, the next year comes and if people do ask, then it's like, oh, I don't have anything, you're gonna have to wait like 6 months.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm running into right now. People are like, do you have this, or do you have males? And I'm like, I'm sold out of. It's a good problem to have, but at least, yeah, I'd rather have it this way.
And luckily some people are willing to wait. So like one thing that, one of the morphs I'm semi-known for, I guess, is like my like bold stripe stuff and like bandit stuff. So people will ask me if I have, any of that. And I usually have something. Sometimes it's not the age they want or it's not the sex they want, but I usually have something from that. So I've tried to make a point now where when I'm growing things out, again, just to hold things a little bit more before releasing, because usually come March, people are wanting like all those breeder ready animals. Like they need a new male because theirs didn't perform, or they realize they need a new female and they want that. So it's like I usually have all that kind of growing out, or I have something that I didn't release until. So I have a few that hatched earlier this year that I haven't listed yet, but they will be listed probably like the beginning of the year now. So, and then it's kind of like something new to show, but then also it's an age people are going to want. So at expos, I find people want younger, but breeders usually want something that's kind of more almost ready to go. So they didn't have to kind of grow it out.
Right.
So I don't mind growing them out, just especially because, then you can get used to their personalities a little bit better. But some people are more, it's more of a breeding issue. So they want to be able to breed it and then go from there and not take up the space as far as growing them out. So, and I don't mind, like I've grown out geckos. If there's other breeders that can't choose between a few, I'll grow them out for months and then they'll decide and it's fine.
Yeah, that's how I kind of started out. I started out buying proven stuff just to kind of get things going. But now since I have, adults kind of ready, I'm okay with buying like younger stuff and growing it up younger by being sub-adults. I can breed in the next year, not super baby. But yeah, I figured out, and that worked fairly well for me just to kind of learn the ropes a little bit. And then, if there was an animal that I really want that fits this project younger, I'm going to hop on that and grow it out rather than waiting for something that's older that may not fit my projects as well. Because I find myself being a little pickier too. I've kind of, for the most part, ended, I guess, adding kind of stuff and then seeing it build. I say that now, but it's like we all know it's like hard. But for the most part, done kind of buying my pieces and then making it from there. So.
Yeah, I find everybody kind of like, sometimes I feel people start bigger and then they narrow down, because I did that. I had more kind of genetics going on for a little while, and then I narrowed it down to stuff that I have limited genetics but so many different projects, and like the different ways the lines that have gone, and the way I'm kind of mixing things in combinations, and I'll get something different every once in a while to kind of change things up and add that diversity. So I find I'm not really running out of options, but I don't have to have every gene there is. I can just work with one type of albino, one type of eye strain, and everything else is, kind of polygenic at this point. Work with 2 different snow strains. I have Max Snow and Gem Snow.
Okay.
But so those are really the only things that stay separate. Everything else is pretty much compatible. There's certain things I choose to not mix, and a lot of things that benefit from mixing. So like with Black Knights, a lot of them seem to be fairly small because they're so closely inbred or line bred. So I've been mixing them with some of my really huge like Tremper tangerines to see if I can kind of stretch that out a little bit, because I have a Black Knight Tremper cross that I got, and so all of her babies that came out. They're now het shrimpers, so I'm
Mhm.
mixing the bigger ones because
Yep.
I don't want them maxing out at 40 grams. I'd like them to be a little bigger.
Yeah. Yep. I've heard, yeah. It's kind of where I'm at with the Black Knight stuff too. People love the all black geckos, but it's not, to me, it's not super sustainable to keep breeding for the black geckos. Is that what your kind of thought is? Because you
Yeah.
have to introduce more lines or new blood, but that's the tricky part of it, is knowing the blood where it actually comes from instead of
Yeah.
just promoting it. Yeah, that was one thing I want to bring up, your thoughts on the Black Knight thing in general, because it's kind of
Yeah.
a
Yeah, and it's kind of funny though, because maybe like 2 years ago, if you would have talked to me, I would have been like, no, I have no interest in getting Black Knights because I don't want to work with them. And that was specifically getting pure Black Knights and just putting them together. My thought since then was I have plenty of things I can mix them to that would benefit from this.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you get, so like I work with like a line called Skittles, which is like emerines.
Okay.
And so as babies, their black bands fade, and black usually fades into green.
Okay.
But the green doesn't always stay. So what has a lot of black that could maybe fade and help keep that green? The Black Knights. And so far that seems to be paying off.
Cool.
So I'm not looking to create more solid black animals. I'm just looking to switch things up and see what I can get from that visual side of things. Like if I can get extra black or add like more black to like things like my bold stuff, my, you know, then that's where I'm going with it. And then in the end, if I can get the Black Knights, if I'm getting solid black again, at least they'll be bigger, hopefully, and a little bit more healthy.
Yep. That was my kind of planning with it too. Like I have one female that's she's pretty good size. I have to weigh her, but I just got her not too long ago. That's pretty solid black, that I'm kind of using her as a base to breed back if I want something darker, or, you know, if I have a tangerine, go more that route if I want something lighter. So kind of not, using it that way, which is kind of similar to what you're saying. What other projects do you focus on, or like you kind of spoke on a few of the genes?
I have a few specific ones. I try to not really have just random stuff. The bold stripe stuff is one of my main, and I have bold stripe bandits, and then I work with like the cinnamon bandits, which is the darker trimper bandits.
Okay.
The Skittles, which is basically like line bred emerines. I do Tremper tangerines. I have a line of those that I've been working on for a long time. I do several bold stripe things. So I do have some that are like more tangerine, some that are really like a high yellow. I have Eclipse, bold stripe Eclipse. What else? I have Firebolt Eclipse and Firebolts. I like
Firebolts. I have a pair that I really like them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I'll do like crosses here and there, like with my Firebolts and bold stripes, and or Firebolts and Skittles, and you know, kind of mix them together. And the offspring are usually pretty cool, but then I can kind of divert those back into, you know, the more pure projects just to keep it, because you don't want something that's line bred a whole decade. You really got to break that up a little bit. So, but you don't really want to backtrack too much. So find something similar at least. And then kind of start interweaving it into your project. That's usually what I try to do. So like people will take a Skittles from me or a Firebolt Skittles cross, and they'll like breed it to like their clown or another kind of tangerine, just because it does look similar, but then they're not really backtracking much because they don't want to, you know, get clowns that have been, you know, from the same breeder that there's not anything else, supposedly nothing else in them, but you don't really know. I mean, some breeders have, you know, they'll have full records of stuff, and I try to have that. So like I have like their parents or grandparents and everything else all the way back to either where they originally came from, like from a different breeder, or if it's all started from here. So if I have like great grandparents or, you know, so I like to be able to have all that. I'm kind of like I don't want to say like a freak about it, but I just like to be able to have that and then provide that. So like if someone shows me a picture of a gecko they got from me years ago, and they're like, oh, I forgot this one's birthday, and it's like, all right, like when did you get it? And I can kind of look back and I have all of that. I have spreadsheets and I still have like notebooks that I write everything in.
Yeah.
So just to keep it as much as I can. This way, for whatever reason, like I can't keep any of this anymore, then someone that takes over it can have all of that, and it's not a big mess, and they're not worth anything.
That's something I'm trying to work on to be better as well, is keeping more track record of things, because the first couple years I've just been kind of, it's, I don't do so many, it's so few that I know, but I need, as I start branching out, yeah, I'm getting to the point where, okay, I need to write stuff down a little bit more, track it a little bit better. So
yeah, and like one thing like with keeping a smaller amount of breeders is I'd name my breeders, so instead of just giving them numbers and stuff or just codes, all of my breeder males and females have names, so then all their babies will have their hatch date with the parents' names on them, so then I know exactly like who belongs to who. And then the babies all will get their little IDs, but when I do their IDs on Morph Market, all the lettering and stuff that I do has to do with the parents' names.
Okay.
So this way, if someone asks me a quick question, and if it's about like, oh, can I see parent pics? Like I can immediately just send them.
That's really
so
nice.
It's not like a whole thing, because people want to see that, or if it's an adult, they want to see babies that they've had or siblings and things like that. So I try to keep it organized, because that's the kind of stuff I ask if I'm interested in something.
Right.
Is, you know, like, oh, like, can I see its entire family?
You see, do you have a lot of customers that ask more like the lineage? I haven't really had, very rare I've had people ask about parents.
On occasion. It's more not than they do. It's usually if it's another breeder, they'll ask, or sometimes if it's like a new breeder and they'll just ask, like if it's one that if I say that it's proven, they'll want to see what kind of babies it produced, and I'll show them, but I'll say, you know, keep in mind, like it may not look, what depends on what you're trying to breed it to. So I sometimes will then ask them that, like, well, what are you trying to pair it to? Because then that will change the outcome depending on what that is. But I don't have a problem showing it. But yeah, it's usually newer breeders that don't really, yeah. But people that just want to pet, they don't ask, they don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Oh, Marcus asked, is clutch something that would, I think in the future, Summer's actually reached out to me and asked about leopard gecko breeding to kind of get an idea of what a breeder I would like to look at. So I can't speak 100% sure, but I know there are changes that will be coming out with clutch on being able to add more species, but that's all I kind of know at this point. So it's in the works. So hopefully in the future, yeah, then I can use clutch a little bit more and have all my ball pythons and geckos in one spot would be easier. But
yeah, I've tried some of the apps for all of that, and I just like to use my spreadsheet. It's just easier.
Yeah, I just did one the other day with pairings for the year to kind of keep track of who's going to who, since now I have a little bit more with that. Trying to think of what. And then as far as interesting keeping up, because I get pet owners ask us too, what are your thoughts on like overheating versus like underheating? Because I mean, I keep my stuff in racks for the most part, which is all under, but there's this huge thing that you see on Facebook online that underheating isn't ideal. So
yeah, I think it really depends. It's personal preference and what you have, and obviously different regions, like areas in the world, they do things differently. Some of them have, you know, different standards, or things are, some I've seen in some of my groups, people say, well, it's illegal to even do that here. Like, so it depends, but I have rack systems. I have different size tubs as they grow older. So heating underneath. However, when I'm at expos and things, I'm obviously selling pets.
right.
So I do have care sheets, and I have on there, like, there are multiple different ways to heat. It really just depends on what kind of setup you want to have. If you're having something really simple, especially to get started, I say, you know, under the tank heater with a thermostat. Otherwise, I say, you know, get a deep heat projector or ceramic heat emitter if you're going to add substrate, or, you know, and I kind of just go over what they're trying to do or how much experience they have. But for me personally, it is under.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought too. And that's why I
It's
tell
just,
people.
this is, I mean, I know people, they hate it. And so that's why I have videos that I've shown before of like what my tubs look like and cleaning things, but it's like people just hate it. But
Yeah.
it's efficient, and my geckos are healthy, and it's not, I try to not keep geckos their entire lives because I don't want them living in this their whole life. But it's like, you know, my baby's in the 6th quart, then juveniles go into the 15, and my adults all move into the big 32s. Sometimes breeder females will go back to a 15 quart because they get distracted on where they should lay their eggs. So they'll lay them. They don't really know.
Yes.
You keep them somewhere where they feel safe.
Yep.
They lay where they're supposed to.
Yep.
So, you know.
Yep. No, mine do the same thing. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. I'm like, why do you do this to me? Yeah, they lay outside the lay box. So yeah, I've moved them to smaller, a little bit smaller
Yeah,
tubs.
they'll like lay in a water dish or lay under the paper towel or you know, in the dry area, like they do. So some of the females have to kind of, they'll downsize for the season, and then, you know, the males, they get their big house all year. And yeah, babies just kind of go from different sizes depending on how long I have them. But yeah, it is what it is. I know there's some breeders that are kind of moving toward giving big individual enclosures for everybody, and that's great. I don't really have the space and the means for all that. If I were to like downsize my collection where I'd only maybe have a dozen that I'm breeding, and like, it's, I mean, for me, it's a hobby now, but if I really made it where I like only had a handful, then I could probably pull that off. But at that point, I don't know if I'd want to breed them anymore. I would just have a room full of pets and not worry about that aspect of things.
Right.
Or I would just get various reptiles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do really try to not have the same geckos for an extended period of time. This way they can potentially go, I like to say, like, after a few years, like, I will call them retired, and I'll take them to an expo, and they're very social and handleable, and those ones usually will go then to go live in the enclosure that I would prefer them to be in.
Yep.
So not to be a hypocrite of what I do, but it's kind of how it is. And I've seen a lot worse, but it's kind of, you know, part of reptile breeding is we have the rack systems. It's efficient for us and them.
Mm-hmm. And if they're healthy and thriving, not stressed, and I think it shouldn't be looked on super, you know, negatively. I try to see both sides of it. Ultimately look and see, is the animal thriving? Because I've seen, as a vet, I see a lot of consults on that in my free time, or even people keeping them in terrariums, and I get pictures, and it's like, this gecko is not healthy. I don't even know if it can be saved at this point. So it kind of goes, you know, also being kept in a terrarium doesn't automatically mean that it's healthier for the animal if they're incorrect temps and no human hide or incorrect diet. There's, you know, a lot of things that can go wrong there too. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is you can give them the most natural looking habitat and all this space, but if everything else isn't right, you know, if you're not giving them any sort of supplements, or that, you know, they're not being fed properly.
Yep.
You know, so there's give and take for everything. People just have to pick their battles better.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that too. Are there what other like unethical things have you seen in the hobby over there? It seems like, look, me coming into it, I learned about it right off the bat. We kind of talked about backstage a little bit, where I bought a gecko from a breeder and I was really excited. I posted it in a Facebook group, like, hey, got this gecko and who's from, and then, I mean, it was a good thing, but a lot of people in the comments saying, you know, you shouldn't have bought from this person. It was unethical. You know, I didn't do as much research as I should have. I looked at the reviews. They had good reviews, but I didn't know the community behind this person. I ended up reselling the gecko. I told that person where it came from, so they knew. I was able to, you know, rehome it at that point. But what other kind of things have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, there's every once in a while another couple of breeders come up that aren't that ethical, and they're like real quick rise to fame, and usually their followers are not even in the leopard gecko community. It's just everyone else in the reptile community, and they're just seeing, like, it's just a show. They're not seeing, you know, and even when they're being shown unethical practices, they don't care. They still defend this person. Because I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember specifically.
Fair enough. I always feel bad saying like
I don't have a problem saying names out loud, but it's not my show. So
well, he's came up on the chat before, so it was Geeky Gecko Creations.
Okay, so
he's been on the trap before, so I'll just say it because it's been talked about.
Up with that, but it does seem like he's slowly fading away, which
I've seen that too. I don't see it as much, but maybe because I don't follow anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Every couple of months he would do something insane, and it would just rile up the entire leopard gecko community. And it's like, what now? And I've really tried to stay away from all that because it's just so negative, and it makes us look terrible.
Yeah.
But and somebody's got to speak up, and normally it has been me in the past. There's a few others that haven't been afraid to like say things to him, but his followers can be just as crazy, and they'll come after you, and they'll come after you personally, and they'll leave reviews on your page, and like it's like a nightmare. It's like it's so is it worth saying anything sometimes? And you know, it took me a while to get rid of some of that negativity that was going on my own page, and having my page flagged and all kinds of things because they were saying I was harassing somebody. It's like I was literally asking somebody just to not be super unethical and like pointing out, like, can you not do those kinds of things or say these things? Like, it's just terrible advice. And it just became, oh, you're just harassing them. You're a hater. You're trying to cancel them. I'm like, yeah, I am trying to cancel them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not normally like that, but there's every once in a while people come along and they're not great for this hobby. They make it look really bad.
That's a subject that's came on the trap too recently, more so on the ball python side. But we even had a carpet guy come up not too long ago. And I think if it's done in a way that's more on the professional side of things, but still bringing it out for people to know and save people the trouble of being scammed or losing money or killing animals, that's well what we're for, right? Is for the health of the animals. And if that means bring something to light that they're not doing as correct, I don't see the real harm and issue in that. As long as it's done like try to keep it professional, you know.
Yeah.
Thing is all I try to.
Well, that's the thing. It was literally just like a show, like letting things run. Like one of the latest ones that it's been months now, but that he had a bin of leopard geckos and a bin of ball pythons.
Yeah, I saw it.
And he couldn't care less, and he was just tossing stuff around. I'm like, oh my, like,
yeah.
You know, like, it's not funny. Like, it's it's mind numbing. But and people like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy from him. Okay.
They just don't see it, and it takes a little bit. I mean, I hate to say it, a little bit of a trained eye. Well, I shouldn't say trained. You should know just looking at that's not okay. But some people don't have that.
It's common sense goes out the window for entertainment. It seems
right. Maybe
and literally anybody can be a star on social media these days. It doesn't even matter.
Well, it's tough because you do see some of these social media guys who have snakes bite them for, you know, views and stuff. So where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line at? Because a lot of people look at some of those people as heroes of the hobby, but then again, there could be questions of animal exploitation as well. So,
yeah,
you know,
especially if it's something that, I mean, with them being reptiles, it's kind of hard to always read them, but it's like, what are you doing to, like, why are they so aggressive toward you? Like, if you're constantly being bit by all these different things, if they're not like in the wild, like, I suppose that I have one or two that I know if I kind of pester, they'll bite me, but none of the other ones would. So it's like, what do you have to do to get them to be acting that way? Or like, I sold a gecko, an adult male, a few years ago, And I found out later that he was being used in some videos on YouTube for all these different, this guy had a bunch of reptiles and tarantulas, and he was doing all these live feeding videos. So he was like, you know, throwing all these things in there, seeing what he would attack. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I never would have thought that. Yeah. But I'm like, and there's nothing I can do about it. I couldn't talk this, they just ended up banning me from their page, but I'm like, hey, like, can we talk?
Yeah.
Like,
This is maybe not okay.
it wasn't like an aggressive gecko to begin with, but I'm like, why does he seem so mean now? Like,
Yeah.
you
know.
Or you see videos of people, there was a video years ago about, they were trying to show you how to get a gecko to pose, and they were literally hitting it on the head, like stunning it, so they could take pictures so it wouldn't move. And I'm like, that is horrible.
That's
like
horrible.
normally just kind of cup them.
That's what I do is cup. Yeah.
Take 20 pictures and hope they're not blurry.
Yeah. I get so frustrated taking
like
pictures of those.
Flicking them on the top of the head or the side of the head, and then they would freeze.
No, flicking is not, that could seriously damage them.
Yeah,
and injure
but
them.
that
like,
was
they're
that
kind
was
of
their
fragile
for how to take pictures.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that was a while ago. But yeah, so there's always somebody that comes in, and but luckily it's few and far between these days. There's definitely less than there used to be, but it's probably about that time for another up and coming person to come and ruin things.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah, well, as long as we just kind of, again, I'm on the point of policing ourselves, as long as it's done in a relatively professional, you know, just try to be respectful, but also call these people out on what they're doing. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you figure like these are the type of people that they're the reason, like, we have these issues. Like, you'll see, like, I'm member of US ARCs, you get the emails and it's like, oh, like the different areas of what's come up and blah, blah, blah. And usually if you look more into it, it's because somebody reported something. And, so it's like, why purposely make our community look bad? And I feel like that's all just been done for entertainment. So they don't really care. So it makes it harder for us that do.
A lot of that, I've seen that with someone like the venomous guy is like free handling the venomous stuff. Like that one guy, I forget his name now, but yeah, getting big, going to the hospital, all that kind of thing. And then them going and seeing that these animals are not being cared for properly. And that just brings all the eyes on it. And then it hurts the rest of us who maybe aren't doing those things and are trying to do stuff properly. So yeah, it's frustrating that people can ruin it for the rest of us. So again, policing our own community before that stuff happens is probably ideal for all of us as well.
Yeah, and that's why, I've done several podcasts, not many lately, but usually I try to, if there is somebody that is doing things that are unethical and we talk about it, like, I'm not somebody that's afraid to name names, just because you can't give half the information. You can't say this, and this is going on. Like, here's the drama, but I can't tell you anything else. Like, we need to know who they are. We need to know who to stay away from, who to, it sounds really Karen, but like, who to report, who to get out of here. Who to kick from groups, and who to, so everyone's aware. We have new breeders and keepers coming into the hobby every day. They come across a video and then they get hooked. And hopefully it won't be their video, hopefully it's something, because if you hear enough times that someone's bad news, you're bound to maybe listen a little, or at least try to do some research. It works when people praise the same person over and over again. So I don't know. But I just feel like, either stay out of it completely or just put it out there for the community. It's not really adding to the drama. It's like, I feel like it's more helpful to just say, like, okay, so this came up, this is who's doing it, just so people are aware. And especially if they're already putting it on social media, like, they don't care if you mention them then. Like, they posted it, why not? I mean, in a way, it maybe brings more attention to them, because that's kind of what we were doing. Is we had a group chat, and someone would be like, oh, did you see their new video? And then they'd add the link. And then, so if all of us click on it, that's more views for them. But then at least we can kind of see. I stopped following, and I got blocked from certain, but it was, I just, yeah, but that's what I mean is I just think that if something's going on within the community and you know about it, it's best if you can just help, kind of spread the information in a somewhat positive way, an educated way, and not just make it like this whole drama thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. But more so like, okay, so this happened and this is like, let's not do this. Like, let's not, because it makes us look bad. It's only going to be a matter of time before we can't have anything.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that will not become, hopefully we can kind of prevent that from becoming the case. But along the lines of like unethical, because I know of like the Enigma gene, but are there any other genes that are maybe like you don't want to put together or that cause their lethality or something?
So the main genes so the biggest one was the lemon frost, and that was the one that Frank was working on, and it has been done. Studies have been done. And that's the one that's cancerous, and there's no curing it. There's no outcrossing it. It's just spreading it. So that one, and then Enigma is the one that has the neurological disorders, and there's like no curing that.
Yeah.
There, people, I mean, you can outcross it, I guess, but it's kind of like anything can trigger it. White and yellow on occasion, I guess, can get it. I think it kind of depends on the lines and who's working with it.
That's what I was going to ask. I recently saw the white and yellow syndrome, so that was something I was going to bring up and ask. I'm not 100% sure, but it sounds like it's kind of...
Yeah, I mean, and I know many breeders that work with white and yellow, and they have zero. And then I know a few that ended up with issues. So for my sanity, I've just never worked with it. Anything that has potential to have an issue, I just didn't want to work with until I got Black Knight. And the only issue with that is usually they're a little smaller overall, and sometimes there can be infertility issues, but I didn't get any that were like really significantly line bred. I didn't, get anything super, super high end, so I didn't have to worry about that. But otherwise, as far as mixing things together, you just don't want to cross like eye strains and albino strains.
Right.
Nothing really bad physically or neurologically comes from that. It just kind of just messes up the genes.
Yeah.
So then you can't really tell what's what, and trying to outcross that back out is just a nightmare. So you just don't want to do things like that. You don't want to mix the snows together. But anything else is pretty fair game. You kind of want to have an idea of what's going to happen with it. Otherwise, everything's just going to be a normal.
Yeah.
I think that's where like beginners get like, so they're like, oh, if they see a white gecko, which is usually like a blizzard or a Diablo, and they're like, oh, if I mix it with this, will I get this? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. That's where I'm kind of at. I'm learning what genes do what, because some are polygenic, but then some are not so much. And then you have your recessives. That's where my kind of learning is at. I've looked at Gecko Boa's page a lot just to refer back to because it's helpful. But what other like information or where can people go to learn more about the genes and maybe how they work with each other? Like what would be your recommendation on?
So I have groups on Facebook, and the Gecko Boa one is the main one we use because he has the most thorough information. Updates it regularly. I would say to maybe check out the Ron Tremper books. However, some of the information in there is inaccurate, or at least wasn't put in there the way it's supposed to be.
Okay.
I have had conversations with Ron about this kind of thing. Some things just aren't labeled correctly, and he kind of said he wasn't certain things he fixed on his website. So you'll see that it'll be updated, and certain things will say like just different morphs, like the titles were put in the wrong spots on some of them. But otherwise, for the most part, there's really good information and like visual references in those.
Okay.
But yeah, as for right now, I mean, I know there was a few other ones when you Google, but right now, like people can just put anything on the internet. So I mostly tell people just to stick with Gecko Boa or to talk to a breeder directly, like someone that they can trust or, that is recommended by many people in the hobby, like go to them.
Okay.
And then if there's like specific genes you want to work with, like find other breeders that maybe work with them, and then they can show samples or like I work with Tremper is the only albino I work with,
Mhm.
and I incorporate that in most of my projects. So I have so many variations of the Tremper albino. I don't even need another albino to have variety.
Right. Right. I
So
know.
I have very pastel looking ones, very vibrant looking ones. I have like
Mhm.
the chocolatey looking ones. So it's very cool. And the more you like kind of line breed and selectively breed, the better your the stock usually gets.
Okay. Okay. That makes
So
sense. Is
it's
there
just
is there an albino strain that's more popular than the other ones, or do you think they're all kind of?
it
I
depends.
work with Tremper myself, but
I would say Tremper's the most popular just because it's the most common.
mhm.
Um, but I kind of feel like maybe Bell is the most popular because it goes so well with white and yellow.
Mm,
However, Rainwater is awesome with tangerine, so
mm,
it really kind of depends. They all look good depending on what they're mixed with.
okay.
And then certain ones, like really, really common ones, will look all the same. So like when people say they can tell just by looking at it, it's this albino, like not always. Like
Okay.
certain things, yeah, because you can just there's certain details you can say you know what line that is. But to typical people getting into the hobby and that think that they can name the different albinos by looking at them, you can. And I have a line of Trempers that look exactly like a friend of mine's line of Rainwaters. So
Oh,
we put them together all the time. It's like, can you guess what's what? And people think they're related, and they're not at all.
oh, that's funny.
Cool, because they look exactly the same, but two
Huh.
totally different strains.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it shows I get people they'll show me a picture of their gecko at home, be like, "What kind of gecko is this?" I'm like, "It looks albino, but," and
Yeah, that's really all you can give them.
they don't quite understand. And it's like leopard geckos, you have to kind of know the parents to know what it
Yeah.
could be. You can't really just look at it and be able to tell most times.
Yeah,
You can
and they
tell.
don't really like hearing it's a normal. And I've tried to make it fancier for them by saying it's a wild type, and they're like, "No, I got it from a pet store."
Fancy. It's
Yeah,
fancy normal.
they don't want to hear it because they're like, "No, it's a wild type." They're like, He wasn't wild or from the wild. He's from the pet store." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well," or they're like, "This is my fancy gecko." I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. I get a lot of
not
that
that they're
too.
not fancy. It's just it's not a morph.
Mhm.
They
What are
really like that.
what is even fancy in the pet store? What even is that?
Not normal. So
Okay.
albino blizzard,
Okay.
different pattern other than the banding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's literally anything than what a normal baby looks like.
Okay.
So and then they just charge extra for it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I've been doing a lot of at shows, at least just educating people on, that's one of my big soapboxes I get up on too, is the whole pet store thing and not to buy from pet stores, even though the price is like $40. They're like, why would I pay $100 for your gecko when I can go to PetSmart down the street and get their gecko for $40? Like I've had people straight up ask me that at shows. So it takes a little bit of
Oh yeah, I
educating
do
on that
that too.
part.
I mean, and I'll occasionally have some geckos that are priced a little lower, like the 40 to 60 to range.
Hmm.
If they're a more normal looking, I guess.
Yeah.
Juveniles or whatever, and then I'll tell them too is one of the things I'll ask is like, oh, like why should I buy from you at the pet store? It's like, well, I supplement them, I deworm them, I socialize them, I have their
Yeah.
hatch dates, I know their lineage, like I have all this information, and you can
Mhm.
hold it right now, and it's not going to bite you or jump away. And sometimes, but some people they still don't care. They'd rather just go get whatever's cheaper.
Yeah.
At that point, fine. Like I don't want you to have my gecko.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of brought up in things too. Like some people, unfortunately, put the amount of care based upon the price. So if it's something for $20, they, I want to say, don't care about it as much, but it's
Mhm.
more dispendable, I guess, versus something that maybe costs a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit
more of a
more.
throwaway thing to them
Right.
because then if it doesn't thrive or they can't figure it out, it's like getting a goldfish for them. They don't care
Yeah.
as
Yep. Yep. So that's why I try to have kind of a minimum. What are your thoughts on the market overall? I've been in it for 2 years now. I'm not been producing a whole lot. I would say locally near me, I can sell stuff at shows, but they're not crazy popular. Like a lot of people come up and they're like, "Oh, I already have leopard geckos at home. They're like, these are really cool and different, but I'm looking for something more exotic or something like that. So what are your kind of thoughts on that?
The market in general for leopard geckos has fluctuated for sure since I've been doing it.
Mm.
There's been highs and lows, and definitely it's getting a little better, I think, but for a while it was really oversaturated. I think because of like with COVID and stuff, people had nothing to do but buy reptiles and breed them.
Yeah.
And then they were just everywhere, and then they ended up everything was just really cheap because people couldn't get rid of them after that. And then as far as other species, I don't really know. I know at my expos, leopard geckos were pretty popular with there was a few other breeders for a while, but now I'm one of the only ones.
Same.
A lot of them aren't into leopard geckos anymore, or just don't vend.
Yeah.
And it's mostly like crested geckos and ball pythons.
Yep.
Are the big ones. I think we have a few like axolotl breeders. There's some dart frogs, in like invertebrate stuff, but it's mostly crested geckos and pythons right now.
Yeah. Yep. Same for me, but even being one of like the few leopard geckos are still interesting. I just don't see a lot of people there to like buy them or get into them. I have a few, so I'm trying to figure out why that is, because they're still a really great
it's a
pet.
I actually find that this year a lot more people in my area were looking for like bearded dragons and skinks.
Same bearded dragons. I heard that at a show today, that there were people literally fighting at an expo tomorrow over bearded dragons.
I know one for sure. He actually lives near me. I sell him feeder mice for his snakes. He breeds bearded dragons. He vends with me, and there might be another one, but I mean, he's got the nicest ones. He's got like the really dark red ones and stuff like that. I don't know the morphs, sorry.
Yeah, so I don't either.
But they're really like, those are really coming back, because I had a bearded dragon when I was younger and I loved him. And when I first was getting back into reptiles as an adult, I feel like I would always see them at expos. There'd always be bins full of them, and then we just don't see them. And now people are, and then I see people walking around with their little skinks now. So it's cool. I mean, I still get, some shows are better than others. Sometimes I'll sell 5 at a show, and sometimes I'll sell like 20. It depends. But yeah, it seems like lately people are really wanting something different and going back to, the bearded dragon. So, which is cool, because I know like last year everybody wanted crested geckos. Like that was everybody wanted that. Yeah.
So yeah, basically we shouldn't, but chase what people want, just work with what we want. And what I kind of did today at the shows, I brought some of my really nice breeding animals just to kind of show people, like that really dark black knight, and then I brought like a pretty nice tangerine trumper male, just to show people, and it got them so excited about what they can look like. So I think that I'm gonna start kind of doing that, where they were like, is that even they're like, that's not a leopard gecko. I'm like, yeah, that is a leopard gecko. Like getting them so excited that they can look like that, and seeing it in person, letting them hold it, touch it, just seeing that was kind of put a light bulb with me too. Like, okay, I should do this to excite people about them, and creating these really crazy colors and patterns that people haven't seen before, to kind of get them more excited about it.
I've done that a couple times. I got those display cases that kind of just lift up from the top.
Yep, that's why I put them in. Yeah,
and I'll bring I don't do it with every show, because if I have a lot to bring for sale, I really won't have room on my table. But once I start kind of dwindling down a little bit, so I'll bring my display cases, I'll bring some breeders, and so then people can hold them and see, like, I'll be like, oh, like these are literally their offspring, so like it can look something similar. Or I've been working with the subspecies now, so I'll bring the adults to the show. I have babies for sale, but I'll bring the adults to the show for people to hold and see how awesome they are, and people are just like stunned by how they look and how beautiful they are, and how well behaved they are, even though their babies are psychopaths.
Yes, you don't tell them about it.
They are. And oh, can I hold the baby? Nope.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Nah, you can, if you train them at home, but
babies are a little hyper and they scream. Like the Fuscus babies scream a lot. Like I have some that are 6 months old by now, and they still scream.
Where are those from?
Those ones I think are the
Afghanistan?
West Indian.
West Indian. Okay.
Yeah, and then East Indian is the Hardwickie, I believe.
Okay.
So I have those because I thought they were so beautiful. But the Fuscus are the ones that are like a really pale yellow, and they have the actual leopard spots on their
Okay.
pack. So I love them. They're very quickly becoming my favorite. And then the Hardwickie look kind of like African fat-tailed geckos. They behave like them too. They're very slow moving, except for when they're hunting. Higher humidity. So occasionally they'll have like shed on their tips of their toes, like the babies sometimes will, because they're just not as good at it. But yeah, so bringing that, because there's nobody around here that works with the subspecies. So, and the baby Hardwickie, everyone thinks they're cave geckos. As soon as they see them, even though it says on the container what they're, like, oh, the cave geckos.
Oh, interesting.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
But they're gorgeous though, and people like them. So I've homed a couple of those so far. People always want the adults, so that is one downside about bringing your adults, is people want those.
Yeah, that's what a couple people were asking. I'm like, nope, sorry, not for sale. Like they need to breed. You can come back and buy a baby, in a year from now. But yeah, that's the other kind of caveat. But I'm just trying to think of more ways how to excite people into them. Still gonna work with them. I still like them, but how to get excitement in the community about them and not just come up and be like, oh, another leopard gecko, and just kind of mosey on.
Yeah. So what I found, so when I vend, I actually have, there's a couple that I've been vending next to, almost the entire time. So like for the last 8 or 9 years, I've been vending next to them, and she has this, I don't know if it's driftwood or like a piece of driftwood, and she has it mounted, and she has her ball python hangs out on it all day, so people can pet her and take pictures.
Oh, cool.
And whatever. And I'm like, can you make one for me so I can put my geckos on there?
Oh, wow.
It stops people.
Yeah.
And because sometimes they don't want to stop and look at, your table. But if you have something like kind of that's eye level and there's things that are alive on it, they will stop. And
that's true.
Oh, I didn't know that was alive. And they'll ask if they could pet it or if they could take a picture of it. And then you can kind of engage with them that way. Because I stand the whole time so I can engage, but I don't like to feel people pressured to come and look at my geckos.
Yeah.
So, but I've done that now where I'll have the geckos on the stand. Like if I bring my Fuscus girls, I'll put all 3 of my breeders on there, and they'll just sit there all beautiful, and they'll climb up and they're handleable. So if people come up, it's like, but you want to hold it? And they do really well. But yeah, I've noticed that gets a lot of attention. So yeah, having something to engage. So if you can have some sort of display where you can have a gecko out, like your best behaved gecko.
That's the thing. Like I gotta pick so the 2 I brought today are pretty well manageable.
Yeah. So I know some of my adults that do well, but so leading up to an expo, about a week before, I'll try to do some handling tests with some of the younger ones. So I'll put special stickers on their little tubs, so I can know which ones are better with handling or not. Smart. So this way I can use them as examples, or if people are asking, and I can say I know this one's doing well with handling, and if they ask for one that doesn't have that, I can be like, we are still working with this one. So I work with all of them, but some of them just don't come around as much as other ones do.
Yeah.
So that has helped, is knowing ahead of time, who can be held. Because I don't want all of my geckos just being handled all day. I have specific ones that, I will let people handle, and that's it. It's not just any gecko. So
pretty selective. Yeah. That's what I kind of, and it went really well today. People were really, really excited and enjoyed handling them. So it kind of made me feel pretty good, and just seeing their excitement and holding that animal in their hand. And I know a lot of people should be maybe choosy about that, just from a biosecurity standpoint as well. So that's, the caveat, I guess, to that. I'm a little more selective with the ball pythons, but with the leopard geckos, I'm a little more, I won't say lenient, but I guess more apt to hold in ball python, just because of the mite, which I guess they could still come over and still give the mites on the
I
table.
just try to pick and choose and be observant of the surroundings. So like if I see there's a family and their kids are holding every single thing coming down,
Yeah.
not really be interested in letting them hold something. I may hold something and tell them they can pet it or something, but
Right.
or you'll get, and I'm all for kids holding them and learning about them, but there are those that just run to the table. Can I hold something? Can I hold something? And if you hesitate at all, they just walk off. Like,
right.
Not interested. They just want to hold something.
Right. It's usually sometimes other vendors' kids too. And I'm like, come on now. You have your own pets to handle.
Yeah. Or it's disheartening when the kids are actually interested, but their parents could care less. They won't get close to the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we just brought them here to like look. And
it's tough too. I saw that a lot at the St. Louis NARBC show because a lot of people get brought in with the snake discovery. But it was just very interesting how much the kids were into it and the parents are like, absolutely not. Like, we will not get a reptile of any sort. But the kid, you can see the passion and the shirt, and they got the merch. Why?
I love it when the kids are decked out and they know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah. And the parents just kind of sit back and just, and I'm not a parent, so I can't make that judgment, I guess. But it's hard for me to understand why the parent is so like, no, we're not doing this.
I don't get that. So I have a son, he's about to be 13, and I try to at least show interest in anything he has interest in because it's important to him. So, luckily he's kind of a nerd like me. He likes animals and video games and, drawing and stuff. So he's not like real sporty or whatever. So that's nice. But if he was, I would try to like be a part of that still. So when you see the parents that could care less about what their kids are talking about, or like if they're holding something and they want their parents to look or take a picture and they don't care at all, so it's kind of disheartening, but nothing you can do.
I can just try to
put
tell the parent
3 more geckos to your kid.
At
least let your kid have a good day.
That's interesting. It's part of what we do. All we can do is just have the energy, enthusiasm, share with the kid, and see how.
And then I've even like I meet myself, and there's another vendor that he does a lot of like educational stuff too, but he we had a thing where it was a kid's birthday and he really wanted this gecko, and we kind of talked with the parents, and we're like, well, if you can get everything for the setup, like I'll give you the gecko, because it was more expensive than they were able to do or willing to do. But the kid was like in love with this gecko and he held it and everything else. And I'm like, I feel like they would give it a really good home. This kid was knowledgeable. The parents seemed really invested in, learning too. They just didn't want to spend $200 on a pet. For some people that seems like a lot. For me these days, that's a really good price.
I mean, this animal is going to live for a very long time.
But they'll get to that point. But then that's what we did. They went and got everything, and then they tried to make it a surprise, where at the end of the show, like the dad like put everything in the car, and then they came back and it's like, oh, here, like take your gecko home, and it was like really cool.
It's awesome.
So, we get to do stuff like that sometimes, because it's that kid might grow up to be
the next
keep this going, maybe he'll go work for some environmental stuff or US Art, like whatever, just to keep this going because of an experience he had.
Well, since the sustainability in this hobby is so very much important, and I feel like we don't always think about that part of it, like not thinking about it so much for sales, but we want to keep what we love going for the future. So trying to bring people in, I think, should be a pretty big goal of ours in order to keep things going and excitement. The more people that are in it, the better for all of us, well,
and that's why I think we kind of mentioned before, is like with me starting Facebook groups and stuff, because everybody was always just so rude to everyone, cutting each other down. Current breeders were not welcoming or kind to newer breeders, and just people were constantly bitching at each other about how they had their setups rather than educating and sharing information. And it's like, why would you want to kick people out and scare them away from the hobby? Like, I can understand some things are annoying, but help it or just shut up. And that was just, I wasn't seeing that in groups. It was everyone was just constantly fighting. So when I was first starting to breed, I was looking for groups so I can be a part of the community more, because all I had was the local stuff. I did the vending, but I'm like, there's a whole online presence I wanted to be a part of. And not many people were very accepting. It was like a small knit group of these breeders that just did not think anybody else was worthy, and you know,
just the wrong mindset to have. Doesn't help anybody long term. But I think you see some of those people fade out as time goes on. Like they stop or they get out or something.
Yeah, and it's nothing I see. So like, I'm not really a part of many groups that I don't run because of that whole thing. So I'll sometimes see people talk about how worthless, or it's not, you know, they don't use the Facebook groups. And it's like, well, join some of mine and you'll see that it's different. There's zero drama in my groups. Everybody is kind to one another. And it's like, just answer the question, share your geckos. It's not a bunch of tanks filled with sand and cohabitation. Like, people have come a long way. And it's, you know, there's no reason for how things used to be, and that they still are. Like, any group that starts with non-judgmental is full of judgmental people. Like, that is, you know.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think of where I was going to go off with that too. Pretty good. I'd say pretty good discussion. I don't know if you can hear my cat. He's like playing with a toy in the background, but
A little bit. I see whiskers.
yeah, there's like, they're acting crazy right now. But yeah, so some of my friends, I'd say I'm more tapped in with the ball python community more so than the leopard gecko community. I don't know. It's just like the groups I've been in. But some of them are kind of reaching out or interested in the leopard gecko. So what are your thoughts? And I think this is the thing we discuss on the ball python side in general too, is diversity. It being able to do, you know, multiple species. It not only helps you as like a reptile keeper, but if you're doing this for full-time business, it helps to have more diversity with that. So what are your thoughts on people, you know, who are breeding other reptiles getting into the leopard geckos? Like, what's the pros? What's the cons? Do you recommend it from that standpoint? Or do they really, obviously, if they show interest, need to love the species first and foremost?
I think if anybody really wants to do it, I think they should go for it. I just think they should have something in mind, like somewhat of a goal in mind. Like, do they have, you know, basic knowledge of, you know, the genetics and certain morphs they want to work with? Not jump into like, what's the top selling stuff right now? Like, never, even with other species, like, never get into it that way. Don't ever look at it that way. Look at what you like, because that, at the end of the day, that's what you're stuck taking care of and you have to look at every day. So you should probably enjoy it. And even if it is the high end stuff that you are really attracted to. So like right now, I think the Black Knight stuff is still all the rage. It does change every once in a while. And there'll be something new coming out. Or that comes up or comes back into fashion. So yeah, if it's something you truly want, then yeah, I would go for that. I would probably start small and see how you like it, and you know, and see if you can keep up with it. Like with these guys, I mean, as you know, you breed the one pair, you get 2 eggs every 2 to 3 weeks for several months, and then I forgot where I was going with that.
They have a lot of babies, essentially. So yeah.
I know, like that's where I was going to go with that, is like with making sure you have like the incubators for them, because I have people that breed I know people that breed crested geckos and they don't have to incubate their eggs. So they wanted to get leopard geckos, and they were trying to breed those and weren't incubating the eggs, and they didn't know that they needed to incubate them. It's like,
yeah,
like, yeah, you have to do that. So like, just making sure you have like the basic knowledge and do some research on the genetics. Maybe befriend people that do work with them already. But yeah, working with multiple species, I think is fine. If I had the space and the means, I would probably work with other species, but I just don't have any intention on that right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just usually steer people away from like those websites that have a little bit of everything and everything's a stock photo.
Yeah.
So like you don't know what you're getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a handful of websites that have those, but like if it's a legitimate breeder business that is just working with multiple things, then yeah,
Right.
as long as everything's still done ethically and their animals are healthy, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's something I've been kind of looking into or feeling the past, I don't know, a month or two, is trying to, yeah, do the ball python and leopard geckos, but keep them a little bit on the smaller side and more manageable. So maybe I could work with other species if I wanted to, because that's something I worry about a lot, is the few, like, how big do I want to get? Well, I don't want to get burnt out. Maybe I shouldn't worry about that as much. But it's just like a thought in the mind of space. You know, space is a huge thing too, because they multiply and they have a lot. So being able to accommodate for that too, and how many other pairs. But I mean, I always recommend it for people too. I have a close friend, a ball python breeder. I'm starting to kind of, he got some cresteds and he wasn't super like into them. So now he's kind of looking at leopards. I'm kind of like, you know, he's interested in looking at finding out which genetics he likes. But yeah, trying to paint, you know, positive picture that they are really cool to work with. There's a lot of cool things you can still do with them. Even though they've been around, I would probably argue them one of those popular pet reptiles that people get into or have been.
Oh yeah, and I feel like the combinations are still just endless, because even like something will pop out, whether it's my collection or just somebody else's, every few months, or you know, maybe even if it's just once a year, somebody will post something and it's just so unique and and then that's what people try to work towards that. So it kind of keeps giving people, you know, different reasonings to do their pairings, and like we were talking about, you could have the same kind of genetic makeup, but you can take it all different ways. So then depending on, you know, how you're choosing to lay out your projects, like the outcomes are endless.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with so much of being line breeding that you're going to get different looks than, say, if it's something like on the ball python side that's more like an incomplete dominant, where does it give that gene? Does it not give that gene? You know, type of thing. There's no sort of like in between, where I feel like you more see so on the leopard gecko side, where there's just different looks, you know, if that even makes sense. That's what I'm trying, that's at least my thought as I'm researching and learning about these guys and how the genetics work.
So like with these, it can be one and the same. So you can have this pairing in this project, and with the same male and female year after year, you can essentially produce all different babies every time with similar features as far as coloring, but their patterns might be different. Or I have some pairings where I'll consistently get the same tail pattern or head stamp. Like it's something that is just continuously replicating that I have going on now. And it is really cool. So if that's something people want, they want, you know, that really symmetric head pattern and that really clean looking tail. And then some people want that real blotchy, messed up, you know. So it's really cool that we can do both.
Yeah. Yep.
I know which projects will be more of like, you know, messy and what's more like perfection.
Yeah. 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 That's something I'm trying to figure out what I like too. I like the firebolt stuff. I like the tangerine, like that red diamond kind of line. That and the black knight. But yeah, trying to figure out what I like, and seeing what other people like too. So it's why leopard geckos have been so fun. They're pretty easy to breed in general, but I think like when you go a morph market, there are a lot out there, but your eyes can definitely tell you which ones are higher quality versus not.
Well, and that can be tricky too, is people go on morph market and you have to really kind of have some idea of what you're looking at, because half of the things might be mislabeled, half of the things might be photo like shopped in some way. So you really it's really about getting to know who the breeders are. So if you're finding you keep liking the same picture, if it keeps turning out to be that same breeder, look more into that breeder, you know, and look on their morph market page, see if they have other social media. you know, ask around about them. Like, just kind of get, you know, don't just, you know, jump right in. So like I'll get a lot of people that'll message me like, oh, I'm interested in these bolds. And people told me like to message you because I'm looking for this type of morph. And so that's always good, is, you know, good to hear. It's like people kind of putting your name out there because, you know, you're kind of known for something, or you're at least trustworthy enough to recommend.
That's what I was going to bring up too. It's interesting that you can notice like who the gecko came from based on the look it has, because of the way they've, even though it's another animal has like the same quote unquote genes, they look vastly different, if that makes sense. Not say vastly, but there's a like a look to it. Yeah, I've kind of noticed that too when I was looking. I really like gecko boa stuff and Malave gecko as well. Like those two, my kind of eyes just kind of gravitate more to. So it's interesting that they kind of create a certain look.
Yeah, well,
some of the genes.
people have like their own little niche. Like, the things that they hold back and work with. You can see a pattern in what they like to share. So, and aside from that, the type of pictures they take, like I can see a picture, and if I'm familiar with the breeder, like I know whose pictures they are.
That. And I recently got some animals and I posted them, and I had some people message me and be like, I probably should have even tagged, I should tag the breeder too, but they were like, did you get this from so-and-so? I can just tell by look at the gecko. I'm like, yes, I did. So yeah, it's an interesting part. Who would you say are probably, I want to say well-known, but good other breeders in the leopard gecko hobby? You know what I mean? Because somebody can be well-known, but not so much.
Well, I mean, there's people, well, let me see. There's, I don't know. I feel like I should open up my social, because there's people that are well known, but then there's people that I like.
Oh, I see.
So just because someone's well known, I don't tend to like them. Just because sometimes the people that are really well known know that they're well known, and they're kind of dicks about it.
That's fair enough. I'm naive, so I guess I haven't.
So I don't know. Like, let me see. I'll just do this real quick off the top of my head because I have a few.
Yeah, just because I kind of ran to that from the beginning, as I, didn't really know who was maybe trustworthy and who was.
Well, I think because I sent a few to you.
I remember that way long ago.
So like, I really love Shannon from Interstellar Geckos. She is awesome. She's very knowledgeable. She works with really pretty black knights. She's got a few other things as well. I like her. I've been friends with her for a while now.
I'm gonna reach out to her to have her on the show eventually as well too.
Huff's Herps.
Yep, I've heard good things about him. He's been on the trap too, I think, before that with MJ.
Bold and Striped. J5 Gecko. Let me see. It's my friends right here that I'm like the closest with, I guess. Bold and Bright. Let me see what I have here. This is
J5 makes really nice 3D printed.
Not even. Some of these people actually in the last year totally fell off the map, and I still follow them, and they haven't posted in years.
Oh wow,
that's crazy. Q's Geckos, Bayside.
Bayside,
Rough Road. Kexotics, I think I sent you her too, Kelsey. She's awesome. She also works with the Firebolds.
Yeah, I like those a lot.
I will obviously recommend John from Gecko Bowl, but he's probably the only like big name I will recommend, because I don't necessarily know how trustworthy some of the other ones are, especially because like I've had issues with some, so I won't mention them. But so he's probably the biggest name that I would recommend is Gecko Bowl.
Okay. Yeah, I've liked him. I've liked him quite a bit. It's where I got my Firebolt stuff from, and animals have always been really nice.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. I'm just
Well, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good amount of names.
blank
So
at the moment. I've been out of the loop a little. And like I said, some of these people aren't breeding anymore, so I can't really recommend them. There's a handful of them that just stopped breeding this year and last year, and
I've seen a lot of that too on the ball python side. A lot of people getting out this year.
yeah,
Market's a little bit harder and everything. I don't know. It's always like this is a really tough decision. It's like I couldn't imagine. I mean, granted, I'm only a couple years in, but I couldn't imagine just like walking away. Like
yeah. I mean,
I just can't
I
imagine that.
occasionally, like this year, actually, without getting into any personal detail because that veers off of the reptile thing, but this year was really hard for me personally. Like lots of different things came up, just avalanching through the year. This year was the most I've actually considered giving up my hobby purely because of time and money. You know, medical bills and just not being able to give them proper care. I've been able to do that, but as I'm at the point where right now I don't have my I mean I always have an idea, but I usually by now would have already had my plans on who's going to be pairing and just things set up, and I would have had all of my shipping and expo stuff ordered and received already. I haven't done any of that. It's all I've been doing is ordering feeders, carrying, cleaning.
Yeah.
But I very, very seriously considered that for this year, like maybe this should have been my last year, but luckily things have been turning around very slowly. So as of right now, I'm not going to do that, but it was like, this is the first time it's been like a reality that, oh, maybe I might have to. And like, this is probably the kinds of things that happen when people need to.
Maybe, yeah. But still, I would just feel like downsizing a lot. Just maybe just have them as pets. Like even I couldn't imagine just
There's definitely some I could
all
not,
of it.
I would have to keep as pets.
Yeah. I get not breeding at, mass scale, but at least have, a pet or something.
Yeah. And even if it came to not breeding, like maybe if I just didn't breed this coming year and just kind of see how things go. But at the same point, it's like, I'm already signed up for all the expos and things. So it is what it is. But like I said, things are starting to turn around, but it has been kind of crazy. Just, it's like every year, a handful just gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will start saying like they're going to downsize, and then next thing you know, they're gone. And some of them just vanish. Like there's at least 3 that I can think of that just this year just disappeared.
Interesting.
So they just stopped posting. They stopped responding. And it's like, what, like, what happened?
What happened? Yeah.
It's like it's like you feel like you just talked to them. We did shows together or like podcasts together or sent each other geckos. And it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, they come and they go. I don't think many new people came in this year that I can think of. At least that didn't make it to my circle. I try to at least be, because I run a couple breeder groups. So this way, if people come in to learn, I can kind of get to know them and then kind of watch them blossom.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to reach out to know which groups. I've been just really hesitant on the Facebook stuff.
A lot of people are, I don't use it at all. The only reason I like posting on Instagram, but the reason I prefer Facebook is because you can have a conversation. We can have a whole thread, and it's not like I know you can comment, but I still like to be able to have, I don't know, I like the group aspect of things.
Yeah, I can see that.
Pictures, because in the chat or in the comments of Instagram, people can't share pictures. So if it comes up, then you have to sometimes just message, and then everybody else can't see it. But I do like being able to have that kind of communication and leaving that open for more educational purposes rather than here's a picture. Because a lot of my posts on Instagram, especially my pin posts, they have really long paragraphs, but people probably don't read them. They just see the picture and then they scroll, Right. But on Facebook, people are kind of there to read and learn.
Right.
But I have like a dozen reptile groups that I run, primarily leopard geckos.
Okay.
So breeding, care, just
fun stuff, yeah.
sharing in general.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to join just because I would like to get more, I guess, tapped into it. Just because I am so much on the ball python side, so that's where I don't know why it's not like I don't like the leopard geckos. Obviously, I just have found it easier in that part.
And I have friends, some of the gecko breeders. I mean, and you'll find too, like Shannon works with ball pythons, I believe.
Okay, cool.
And if she doesn't, I know some of her friends do that are also breeders. Game of Morphs.
I've not heard of that
he
one.
does both. He
Okay.
does the leopard geckos and pythons, I believe. So yeah, there's some of them that do work with both already. So if you kind of get your foot in the door with the leopard gecko community, book, you can kind of see others that if they're doing more species like what you work with, and then that's kind of fun to know.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I kind of that's good. Glad we had this conversation that we can kind of figure out how to go about that. Ball python just came so easy. I just joined a lot of Patreon groups, and that's kind of how it started. And then I kind of narrowed it back down on who I felt I meshed with better than others. So
yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, it's already an hour and a half, so that's kind of where I like to keep it.
I've been able to see the chat the whole time, so I do apologize if I missed.
No, I've been checking it. I haven't seen a lot of questions. Just kind of like mainly just like commentary. I can bring some up too.
I just wanted to make people aware that I cannot see comments. I just see you and I. And
okay. Trying to think.
And then there's a thumbnail of me up in the corner that tells me I'm in the show.
Oh, this is one that was brought on earlier. Yeah, I think when we were talking about like outing different people and stuff like that. So I think it's like Wiccan's Reptiles, like he did a thing on cohabbing or whatever with leopard geckos, and I don't know if I watched that or much. Yeah, and then I guess I got a lot of hate for that.
Honestly, I don't really know. That's that Wiccan's Wicked Reptiles or whatever he does. Yeah. So I'm not up to speed on anything recently. I know his first few videos when he started coming into the community weren't great. He had a lot of geckos with metabolic bone disease that he was advertising for sale, and he wasn't like saying that they had that. And they weren't in great living conditions. So he was somebody that I kind of decided I wasn't going to continue supporting. But I don't know if things have changed since then. So if it is what it is there. But that's just something I didn't have a great experience with in the beginning when he first started posting content. So I did remove them from my group at one point because the content was repeatedly terrible care for these baby geckos.
I think this was fairly recent, like the last, 6 months, I think, where, he posted like a cohabbing video or something.
I mean, and so when it comes to that, so like I cohab my clutch mates when they first hatch. I let them live together their first few weeks. They learn a lot from each other. Even like feeding response and competition, they'll kind of learn. But then I do separate them because I don't want, tail loss or, stabbing their faces up and things like that. Yeah. All my adults are kept separate. As experimental things in the past, I've had like sister siblings that I kept together for like 2 years. They were fine, never an issue. The moment that I had them breed, they seemed to get territorial with each other. They needed to be separated.
Interesting.
So, but I had wondered if I never bred them.
Yeah.
So you never know. My subspecies females all live together. They actually do better together. But my normal leopard geckos, they all just stay separate because I don't think it's worth risking regardless of space, because they're still going to gravitate toward each other because they're going to go where the food is or they're going to go where the heat is. And if one decides to be dominant, it'll be too late then to do something about it. So
right. Yeah, that's how I do too. That is interesting on the clutch mates. I've separated them at birth, like when they hatch, and I had to keep them separate the whole time. But I didn't think about but I've never had an issue with them not getting on food or anything, but I guess it could only maybe enhance
Yeah,
it for a
so
few weeks.
when I first started, like my first year, I separated everybody right away. Like
Yeah.
as soon as they hatched, they were in their own.
Mm.
And then I kind of was like, the second year, I think I noticed like sometimes some babies were taking a little bit longer to figure things out. So I started letting the babies just go in together, and then or putting them back with their sibling to see if
Mhm.
that seemed to help. And it
Mm.
did. They seemed to kind of learn from the other one what they're
Hmm.
supposed to do, or that just that having that little bit of competition, they want to get the food first or whatever.
Interesting.
Because I have done it where you try to tongue feed to get a feeding response and go from there. But ultimately, you don't want to have to be tongue feeding a baby every single day. It's entire, if it's just not going to come around, like, there's the failure to thrive kind of thing. So if they
Yeah.
can kind of figure out naturally or by learning from their sibling, I kind of have let them do it that way. And I've actually had really good success with that. And then once I see they're both doing really, really well, then I just will kind of separate them.
Okay, maybe I'll try that then. Going to my just to try it out and see.
Yeah, and some of them behave differently. Some of them I'll separate sooner than others because I'll sometimes notice that one is suddenly bigger than the other one after just a couple days. So you really want to make sure to separate because then the other one's probably not getting any food.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've noticed that they seem to do really good at least the first 2 to 3 weeks, and then I separate everybody.
Okay.
And then, like I said, if you notice after separating, like there seems to be where one's just not really gaining any weight, I'll just put them back with their clutch mate for a little while, and then they seem to figure it out.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I can try that too. I'm trying to see. Most of the chat was just people saying hi to each other, which it usually is. So.
Oh, okay.
See Scott here also recently commented.
Oh.
Yep. So nice. He has really pretty stuff too. And then hey Benji. Yeah, from New Zealand. So yeah, we have a couple people from outside the States, which is
I know
cool.
we do some like Joe from Wildcard, and I think you mentioned Reese earlier. I'd recommend them too. They have nice geckos.
Yeah.
They do a podcast, and usually the chat is just crazy with people constantly asking questions and talking. So there's a lot of chatter going on.
Interesting.
And like I've been a part of other podcasts where I'm like looking at the comments, and like sometimes the people like hosting like don't ever acknowledge them.
Yeah.
There was one that was like terrible, and I made a point to point that out. I'm like, I've noticed because sometimes when I get invited to do a podcast, I'll do research and I'll try to watch some of their stuff. So I know that too. And I'm like, I told the guy, I'm like, I've noticed you never acknowledge your commenters, like ever. Like they'll say things and they'll be commenting away, and like you just don't ever. It's like, so why do a live then? That's just how.
Yeah. I typically do for questions, or certain comments. I think I missed the octopus one too, but he was kind of just agreeing with us anyways when we were talking about that. But sometimes they ask a lot of questions, but sometimes it's just kind of saying hey or whatever. So it kind of depends on it's random.
Like I said, I just wanted to bring it up since I can't say anything. So
no, not too much. Other than octopus. For me, when I watch the podcast, it's like every single thing is flashed. I hate that because it's like annoying to me. Like then my eyes revert to that and I'm reading that and I'm thinking about that and then I like can't follow what the people are saying on the podcast.
To follow, if I'm watching live, I try to follow the chat because if I'm watching live, I tend to want to like join in with a conversation or respond to something being talked about live. If I'm watching something pre-recorded because I couldn't catch it live, then I don't bother with the chat. I just put it on and I do what I'm doing.
Right. But no, I've started recently listening to the Geckoverse ones just because trying to listen to more of the Leopard. I did listen to Strength and Leo's a lot too, but he hasn't really posted much.
Yeah, he's like
anymore
taking a break from stuff. He's finishing up college, I think, and at this point, we don't know if he's going to stay here in Wisconsin or move back to California.
Oh, okay. So he's still
he was from California and then he moved here for a while and he was like vending here and stuff.
Oh,
but
cool.
I think now he's done with college and might move. But we don't know for sure yet. But I've done a lot of episodes with him. I've done some roundtable episodes and a few solo episodes on there, so I don't know how far into that you are. But yeah, I've done Strength and Leos.
Yeah, that was
Um, trying to think of what other podcasts I've been on.
Yeah, with Geckos, because I feel like but I'm so much in the it takes a lot of my focus is how I'm helping run this network too a little bit. So, but yeah, in my free time at work, I'm able to listen to stuff. So trying to find more of the Leopard Gecko podcasts out there. That's how I learn the best. I mean, that's how I learned getting into this. I found the Trap Talk network and just found myself. This is how I learned best, just learning from other people and their experiences too. So I think the podcast thing is really, really helpful. Oh, we have one question. What? Okay, I'm not bringing this comment up. Is there a way I can delete that? Oh, that's like, I'm gonna do this. I've never had that happen before. I won't bring it. It was like I think it's pretty I've never had that. I don't know if it was like a spam or what, but it was like pretty inappropriate. Like a troll or something. I was like, I wrote, it's like, I don't think that's leopard gecko related. I'm sorry if it was, but I took that as like very inappropriate. So I put that person in timeout for a little bit.
Well, like I said, I don't get to see it. So
you don't want to see that one. I was like, I'm like almost turning a little bit red, I think. I don't know, because I don't know. Somebody else comment. Was I the only crazy one, or did anybody else see that? He was just talking about like sexual thing, and I was like, what the heck?
oh god.
Yeah, like just bad. I don't even want to bring it up. I don't even want to bring it up. Anyways, try to. Oh, crazy. Glad I was able to figure out how to do that. I was like, Mayday. I've never seen that before. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, well, we're past hour and a half, but pretty good conversation. I don't know, was there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about or anything like that?
Not that I can think of. I think we kind of covered most things we generally talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Just getting started, how I, do things. I'm pretty simple, I guess. I mean, like I said, I run groups. I've been breeding for almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have my Facebook page, my Instagram page. I'm on TikTok as well. I don't post there as often. It's mostly just any of the videos that I share on like Instagram, I'll post over there.
Yep.
Just because, I try to stay up on like newer apps. I post on YouTube occasionally, but not as much. It's mostly like videos of how I set up like my incubation cups and things like that.
Okay. People can look up for that information. Yeah. I didn't ask too much of the nuts and bolts. I feel like that information is kind of relatively out there. Breeding in general is pretty easy. I feel like people can catch on. So yeah, I didn't ask too much about that, but
yeah. And yeah, like I said, I'm on Instagram and Facebook in the same name. So people can always reach out to me or look at the stuff I have. Any of the morphs I talked about, I've got like the Skittles, I've got a pin post on my Instagram about them as well as my Facebook page. So if people want to see like what they look like. And
yeah. I don't think I've seen those. So yeah.
Yeah. So
cool name.
they're technically like a line bred emerine. So they look a lot like clowns when they're young. So they've got the horns, the yellow, the purple, and all that going on. But ideally, you want them to have more green growing up. So pattern, they can have a lot of pattern or no pattern, but you still want to be able to see the difference between like orange and green and yellow. No two ever look the same. So I've been working with that since that was some of my first geckos. Because the breeder who created them was Garrick DeMeyer. He was crestagecko.com. He does royal constrictor designs.
Yeah, he's a big ball python guy.
Yes. So he used to be really big leopard geckos. He's still geckos, just smaller scale. So I also vend with him as well. So I can show him like where this project has gone. But that was a project he was working on for a few years. Just trying to get as much color as possible.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that over, and really nobody else has working with them. So people tend to get them from me to incorporate in, like I said, their clown projects or their tangerine projects. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. You have to look that up.
But they're really cool. They're really colorful and unique looking. So they're one of my favorites to work with.
I'm not super big into the clowns. I might get some hate, but I'm not super. I don't know. I just not. I know they're kind of a hot. Are they a hot thing? I feel like they're a hot thing.
Yes and no. So for a lot of leopard geckos in general, they look the best when they're like 4 to 6 months old.
Yeah.
They're the most colorful.
Right.
So a lot of times these clowns, and this happens with some of my Skittles too, so I'm not just going to throw hate, that once they're a few years old, they just kind of look kind of rusted out and all the purple is completely gone.
They almost look like a normal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's not really anything impressive. So like the idea is for us to make it where they hold on to that vibrance longer.
Yeah.
So and with some of my Skittles, I've been able to kind of do that. But again, once they reach like 4, 5, 6 years old, they still kind of look, you know, they lose any of that real vibrant uniqueness that they had. Like purple is really hard to keep past a certain amount of years. So a lot of people call things lavender, but by the time they're 3 years old, there's zero lavender.
Zero lavender,
so, like I breed like bold stripe gem snows, which have a lot of lavender, like the first couple years, especially as babies. Some people add lavender into their title because it's visual at that point. I don't think it's necessary because it doesn't stay. So I just feel it's kind of a sales tactic for some people to add in, you know, or if people say high contrast when it's obvious that you can see that there's a difference, like a really bright yellow and a really bright pink. That's high contrast. So sometimes people say it. There's a line, someone has a line where they put that's their project name is the high contrast trumpers. But some people just put it in their label as high contrast, high yellow, like they just add extra words, and some of us just think it's, you know, it's just too much to say.
Yeah. I think I've seen
you can add all of that in, like on MORPH, when you list things, you can like hashtag all of that, but to put it in the listing title is
add too much. Or the emojis.
Yeah.
I know some of that too. It kind of, I don't know what to really think about it, but yeah, it just, I just put what the main genes are, and then I always put the parent, like the parents, like what they are, so people can look at the parents and see my thoughts.
Yeah, and like some geckos are hard to label because there's not there's not really a good name for it aside from what it is genetically. Or people just kind of get confused. So like I said, I work with bold stripes, which is 2 stripes on the side, but I also work with reverse stripes, which is a stripe down the back. So if people don't work with it, they don't know, they can't tell the difference which is which. So I also have those pinned on my Instagram, explaining in detail what each one means, because it can be really confusing. So it's just, you know, just to kind of help. I always try to help people, not like say like, hey, that's labeled wrong. Like I'll mess them and just say, hey, like, you know.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, because I'm kind of in the dark sometimes on it. I put what the parents are and I put what I think it is, but yeah, if it's totally wrong, I hope somebody would reach out, or if I'm asking too crazy of a price on something, like please tell me, because I don't want to be known for being one of those people. So
yeah, people that take advice, it's kind of nice, because some people, you never know how they're going to react, and it's like, is it worth helping? Because some people just get really ticked off if you tell them something, and they're like, nope, this is what I was told by whoever I learned from, so this is what I'm putting. It's like, okay, well,
it's definitely taken me some time to custom to, growing up, I was always kind of stubborn and hard-headed and didn't want to take critical advice, or I'd take it to a negative or personal way, or just go flat out, other direction with it, you know. So
I
it's
think
kind
it just depends on the approach. And like I said, I'll try to message someone and not just comment it so like everyone can see I'm correcting them. Because I
Mhm.
feel like sometimes that makes people look like an ass, as if instead of just letting them know.
Yeah.
And even if that's not intentional, is like if you see something and they have their little label, they're all happy about it. If you say, oh, by the way, that's not this.
Mm.
And you
Yeah.
comment that rather than just say, like, hey, I saw you posted this. And I'll usually try to have a reference of my own gecko, like this is what this is and this is what yours is. So like, or what led you to say,
Yeah.
you know,
The approach is huge,
yeah,
huge, night and day, especially when most of this is online or coming over through text. Like if you just spend the time and put the extra words in, it will come across a lot better than
I
yeah.
think
What you're saying.
everybody's so willing to just think someone's being negative. Like as soon as they
Mm,
read something, they're like, oh, negative.
that's true. It's also the on this receiving end to be receptive to criticism and
Mm-hmm.
try to get things better and realize that hey, you don't know everything and learn from people who've been doing it longer than you have, type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I still ask some of the breeders that I trust and talk to regularly. I'll just ask things here or there, like, do you think I should do it this way? Should I do it this way? The whole thing, because I work with fire bolds, but then I work with firebolt eclipse, and I'm like, well, because they're the visual eclipse, are they no longer firebolts? And everyone's like, no, they're still firebolts. They're just also showing eclipse, but firebolt is a visual,
Mm,
so it's like a bold tangerine is what
yeah.
that is. So, but the firebolt eclipse takes the bold pattern away. It still
Mm,
has a bold head stamp. So it was a whole thing, but
I
ultimately they
see.
decided that I should just keep it firebolt eclipse because it's just what it is.
Yeah.
No.
Huh. I didn't really. What else does Eclipse do? I know what does with the eye, but what does it? I guess I wasn't aware of the pattern stuff it did.
Yeah, so it can wash out color and pattern. So
Mm,
it's usually not suggested for any type of color enhancement. However, if you're putting it into something that's pretty strong in line bred, like with the firebolts, it keeps that vibrancy, that mango orange vibrancy,
hmm.
and it adds speckling to the tail, a nice bold head stamp, and then blacks out the eyes.
Okay.
It
Okay.
also usually like whites out the limbs, at least like
Yeah.
the feet, and the tail is usually much brighter, white nose.
Yes.
Kind of depends on what you mix it with. And then the eclipse can just, in the eyes can be full, partial, they could be clear. So there's a lot of cool things. I
Variations with
love the eclipse gene personally, but some people hate it because they're like, oh, it just washes away pattern and color.
yeah.
Which
I
can,
have I have it mostly in my Black Knight, Max Snow Eclipse stuff. That's kind of where, but I think I have like a male and a tangerine that's possible head eclipse. Like not like so that's what I'm trying to. I guess I would have to test him out to see if he was or not.
yeah.
But yeah, I like it in the Black Knight Mac. Like I have a little panda baby. It's like
Mhm.
so freaking cute. That's like one of my that's like one of my
Yeah, that's
favorite.
what Shannon works with. You should see if you could get her on here.
Okay, yeah, I'll reach out and see
She would be
'cause
awesome to talk to. She's got some beautiful geckos. She does great artwork. She actually did my logo.
oh, very cool. Yeah, that is yeah, where did the Xeno come from?
So, have you ever seen the movie Aliens or like Alien vs Predator, like
Yeah,
the Xenomorphs?
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
but
where
it's
it came.
from that
Oh,
because
interesting.
I'm a huge sci-fi nerd.
Okay.
So without calling my business Xenomorphs, because I didn't know if that was going to become a problem, I
Mm,
broke it up and added
mm,
Gecko in the middle.
that helps. That
So, but
helps. Okay.
that was the idea. So, and then the artwork is basically like if a face hugger got to a leopard gecko, what would happen?
Yep.
So, and
That's
that's
cool.
what he came up with. But yeah,
Okay.
I'm really big into like aliens, predator, all that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
Sci-fi and horror is what I like.
Horror. Horror. Yeah. My well, not my now ex was like really into horror and stuff. So that's I feel like that's all I've been watching the past couple years is that. So now that I'm free of that, maybe I won't watch anymore. I don't know. I didn't think about that till now. Huh. Yeah, maybe I don't have to be stuck to watching horror all the time. I don't know. Some of them I liked, but That was like his favorite
I'm
things.
very picky with my horror. Sometimes I feel like I want the blood and guts horror, and sometimes I just want to be scared. Like the paranormal stuff can be scary.
Yeah. The paranormal stuff scares me more than I'm used to blood and guts, but being
Yeah,
a
so
vet,
like
I
the
see
stuff
that
you
all the
don't get
time.
to see can be creepy.
Yeah. No, the paranormal. What's your favorite horror movie? I'm just gonna ask because I'm just curious.
Oh man.
I like the Chainsaw Massacre from a bloody standpoint. Like that one was actually pretty scary. Smile, I thought was pretty scary.
I don't know. I mean, I guess one of my favorites, like go-tos, is just the original Scream. Just because
Okay.
when I first saw it, it was really different. So that's always like a go-to. I watch that every year.
Mm.
I recently finally just saw Terrifier 1 and 2.
I don't think I've seen that. I've never even heard of that.
It's worth watching. Some
Okay.
people would probably never watch it a second time, but it's definitely entertaining. It is very gory if you can handle that. I'll tell people, because some people don't like that. They either don't like the clown or they don't like gore, and it's both. But it is good. Yeah, what did we
I'll have to look that up. Yeah, I've never even heard about that. I've not, like I said, I've never watched a whole lot of. The Jeepers Creepers. I love that one.
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers.
I like the first one. That was creepy.
I get them peepers. I get them eyes. Yeah, I like that. Was always one of my favorite Halloween things growing up. Was that?
Yeah, we just watched, because of Friday the 13th, we watched that remake, which is absolutely horrible. But I do like Jared Padalecki, so that was fun. Because I love watching Supernatural. We watched that series too. So, you don't watch that? That's more of this more sci-fi kind of sci-fi fantasy.
I don't watch much TV anymore. This is my TV as a podcast stuff anymore.
Yeah, I love watching TV. I'm not much of a reader, except for if I'm researching. I love TV. So like my favorite series is the X-Files.
Okay.
So I watch that, and then I like Supernatural, and we watch things like that. I like What We Do in the Shadows because it's stupid and funny. Have you seen that one?
Nope.
The vampires. Okay.
I don't know. My friend, I went home a couple weeks ago, and my friend was watching like a vampire show. It was like an adult version of Twilight, but I forget the name of it. I wonder if it was that. We just watched one episode. There was one girl, there was like a book. She was in all this stuff was coming out of the book. I don't know. I could be making
that might have been Being Human. I watched that one too. There's a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost.
I don't know. It was just the one episode. It was like an adult version of Twilight, so it was. It was okay, I guess, but I don't know. I forget the name of it. But we went on a little tangent there, but I was just curious.
Yeah, that's fine. Totally unrelated. Everybody left.
Probably that's all right. So yeah, put your social media. Anything else people should know? I think you said how they can reach out: Facebook, Instagram, you're on TikTok.
Yep, and then Morph Market, and yeah.
Cool, awesome. Appreciate that. Had an awesome discussion. I learned quite a bit. Learned some new things I can incorporate. So
yeah, that was cool. And yeah, if you have any, like I said, I can always send you a list of the groups that I run, and then questions regarding breeding or anything, you can always reach out to me too. I'm happy to help.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll definitely join those groups and have Interstellar. I think I've seen some of her stuff too.
Yeah, she's got amazing stuff. Lots of panda stuff lately, but even before then, she has some really nice stuff. Some nice tangerines and black knights.
Okay. It sounds like we have similar projects. So yeah, I'll have to have her on. Cool. Yeah. Alrighty. With that, I'll take you off the screen. I'll kind of wrap it up and be done for the night. Appreciate your time and had a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Cool thing. All right. Take her off. Thank you all guys for tapping in. Hopefully got you more excited about leopard geckos. Go ahead and reach out to Heidi if you have any questions, or reach out to me if you have any questions as well. Can put you in the right direction. Next week, it'll be me as a solo episode, kind of wrapping up 2024, saying what I've learned as a breeder in the over the first couple years of doing this on leopard gecko side, and come in with questions if you got anything. I'll learn what I do from not only from a breeding standpoint, but some of the more interpersonal stuff I've kind of learned too, I think would be helpful. But yeah, that'll be next week right before Christmas. That'll be the last show of the year, and then I'll start up again at the first of the year. So with that, I will take my face off. You guys will just see the thumbnail, and we'll see you next week.